Morning, people. Welcome back to F Politics.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament. The King has granted this request, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
Now, before we get into Rishi Sunak's speech, I want to take a second to think about this, because if the Tories lose this election, which the polls say that they will, then for the first time in almost 15 years, we will have a government where the members of that government will be Labour members, i.e. people who broadly share our progressive values. That is a huge thing, because I've never seen that. My first election was in 2010, so that was where the Tories came into power with the Lib Dems. So I've never seen a non-Tory government in this country that was voted into power in an election where I could actually vote. We've had Tories for my entire adult political life. So whatever you think of Keir Starmer, this will be the first time where the members of the party of government, the engine behind the party, will not be Conservative. So in a few months' time, progressive policies will actually stand a chance. So here's how Rishi Sunak plans to stop that from happening.
This election will take place at a time when the world is more dangerous than it has been since the end of the Cold War.
So he's opening with fear. Like, he just called the general election, and the next words out of his mouth were basically saying, you should be too scared not to vote for me. Which I find especially ironic given that the policy that got him elected last time was based on condemning the idea of Project Fear.
In the Middle East, the forces of Islamist extremism threaten regional and ultimately global stability.
He's referring to the situation in Israel and Palestine, but like, who's using the most weapons? Who's got the most firepower? Who's killed the most people? That would be the government of Israel. And who's selling the weapons? Oh yeah, that would be Rishi Sunak. So he's making the world less safe and then telling us to vote for him in order to be more safe. Okay.
These tensions are exploited by extremists who seek to undermine our values and divide our society here at home.
You say that it's the situation in Israel and Palestine that's dividing our society here at home, but it's your Home Secretary who called the people here at home who are protesting against what the United Nations is now calling a genocide, hate marchers. So regarding the divisions in British society, again, the call is coming from inside the house.
And migration is being weaponized by hostile states to threaten the integrity of our borders.
Now, we can ignore the bit where he refers to people who are seeking shelter as weapons, because that's just standard Tory. But I find it interesting because the Tories, they bombed Syria, and then they complained about refugees from Syria. They sold weapons to Saudi Arabia, which they knew were being used to bomb hospitals and schools in Yemen, and then they told Yemeni refugees to fuck off back to Yemen while British bombs were still falling there. And now they're selling weapons to Israel, which they know are being used to commit genocide in Gaza. So when you talk about hostile governments using military situations to create refugee crises, surely you mean you.
Now, I cannot and will not claim that we have got everything right.
The Parliament's committee has already found that his government's response to COVID was the worst public health failure in UK history. The government's official economists say that the damage they've done to our economy via Brexit is twice as bad as COVID. And you managed to crash the pound to the lowest level in decades, so didn't get everything right is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Now, of course, he bragged about setting up the furlough scheme.
As I did then, I will forever do everything in my power to provide you with the strongest possible protection I can.
Is that what you call leaving 3 million self-employed people without any financial support for over a year? Or repeatedly refusing to provide the poorest kids in the country with free school meals while their parents were literally banned from working?
I came to office, above all, to restore economic stability.
He's referring to how he came to power after Liz Truss crashed the economy, but that's not the whole story. Because earlier that year, he resigned alongside Sajid Javid from Boris Johnson's government and brought him down, leading to a Tory leadership election where he tried to become Prime Minister. So that wasn't about restoring economic stability, because it was only after he lost that Liz Truss took over and then crashed the economy. So if anything, he's responsible for that happening in the first place.
Our economy is now growing faster than anyone predicted, outpacing Germany, France, and the United States.
Yeah, you were Chancellor while our economy had the worst recession in the G7. And when you look at how our economy has done in general during this government, it has not done well by comparison. So while I should stress that international comparisons are never the whole story because it's about what they've done to our economy, it still doesn't score many points.
And this morning it was confirmed that inflation is back to normal.
But under his leadership, the UK has consistently had the highest levels of inflation in the G7. So while the rate at which prices have been rising might have slowed down, the prices themselves are still sky high.
And for some, it might still be hard when you look at your bank balance.
The charity Save the Children worked out that 4.3 million children in the UK are in poverty. The UN said that poverty levels in the UK might be reaching illegal levels. Your own experts called this the sharpest fall in living standards ever recorded. And this year, 15% of families are going hungry. So the number of people struggling is a little bit more than some.
We've tackled inflation.
You've done absolutely nothing for inflation. Your own ministers have admitted that. You left it to the Bank of England, who themselves have said that the policy that you got elected on is making inflation worse.
We've reduced taxes on investment and seized the opportunities of Brexit to make this the best country in the world to grow a business.
Technically, you said the best country to invest in was Northern Ireland, and your reason for that was...
Northern Ireland is in the unbelievably special position, unique position in the entire world, European continent, in having privileged access, not just to the UK home market, which is enormous, 5th biggest in the world, but also the European Union single market.
So how can you say that Northern Ireland having full access to the EU single market makes it the best country in the world to invest, and also argue that Brexit has made us the best country in the world to invest, even though Brexit is the reason that England, Scotland and Wales no longer have full access to the EU single market? Something's not quite adding up there. And on the topic of things not adding up over Brexit, in 2016 Rishi Sunak said that Brexit would deliver an immediate £20 billion boost to our economy. Instead it's costing £100 billion. And that's the crazy thing about this election, because you would think that journalists would say, alright, this government got elected on the promise to get Brexit done. It was literally the title of their manifesto. So as journalists, our job, in terms of holding them to account, would be to judge how has Brexit affected the country, especially after a decade of debate specifically on that topic. Maybe the country deserves some closure so we can move on in an informed way. I'd consider that the absolute basics of journalistic integrity, but then again, this is the UK.
Put record amounts of funding into our NHS.
Is that because you defunded the NHS for 10 years and then a pandemic came along so you had to spend more? Is that the reason?
We made a decision to invest more in local transport that you actually use, rather than endlessly plough more money into HS2.
You're bragging about the concept of value for money after cancelling a project that you spent £27 billion on. Are you okay?
And we are stopping the boats with our Rwanda partnership.
By doing what the UK Law Society says is undermining the basic rule of law in the UK by passing a law to overrule the Supreme Court, who said it wasn't safe to send refugees to Rwanda.
Because I'm guided by doing what is right for our country, not what is easy.
Again, not one Tory politician can ever claim that, because their experts in 2018 said that no matter what version of Brexit they negotiated, it would make people poorer, but they still went ahead with it anyway. So they knew they were doing what would hurt the country for their own political gain.
Over the next few weeks, I will fight for every vote. I will earn your trust.
You guys have been in power for 14 years. Your opportunity to prove that we could trust you was then, not when you need something from us.
And I will prove to you that only a Conservative government led by me.
I love that. That's him saying, please Tories, don't call a Tory leadership election during this general election. I really want to be PM again.
Can restore pride and confidence in our country.
Pride and confidence. Again, you guys have been in power for the last 15 years. So if our country is feeling ashamed and timid, that's on you. Now, of course, the attack plan on Keir Starmer is...
And that's because they have no plan.
And, to be fair, and to put it as kindly as I can, Keir Starmer hasn't exactly come out as a visionary of the left in recent years. So where does that leave us? Well, my priority is make sure that you and everybody you know actually fucking vote. Because a lot of the reason that some of us, including some young people, have given up on politics is because we don't feel that politicians actually listen to us. But a lot of the reason that politicians don't listen to us is because they don't expect us to vote. So they have no reason to fear that we will vote against them. So no matter who you actually vote for, the simple act of voting will add to the data that shows that people like you, whether that's young, black, northern, whatever, actually show up to vote. And you're going to need politicians to know that, because alongside dealing with the cost of living crisis, the top priority for the next government is changing our voting system to one where all votes count equally. And that's going to need a united movement of the people to pressure Keir Starmer towards that. Now, This is a message specifically for young people because the Tories have once again tried to screw you. They've put the election on the 4th of July because they know that a lot of you will be moving between uni and home. They're hoping that a lot of you will only be registered to vote at uni, and so you won't be able to vote at home. Now you should know you can register to vote at both, as long as you only vote at one, of course. So get on that now and get all your friends on that now. And remember to bring photo ID because the Tories have once again tried to play games to screw young people out of their votes. So first off, make sure you actually vote. Second of all, use stopthetories.vote, the website provided by the Movement Forward, so that you know which party is the tactical choice to vote for in your area to get rid of the Tory. In some towns that'll be Labour, in some towns it'll be Green, Lib Dems, Plaid Cymru, whatever. And you don't have to vote that way, but make sure you know how your vote would have the most impact. And then after the election, it is critical that you stay engaged in politics. Follow groups like the Movement Forward, like Make Votes Matter, so that you know how we're going to be pressuring Keir Starmer to give us a fair voting system. How we're going to make it so that Keir Starmer can't get through a single interview without somebody asking him, so, Sir Starmer, why do you believe the majority of British votes shouldn't count? Because we have waited the best part of 2 decades for an opportunity like this, so we better fucking seize it. I'm Femi. Make sure you follow F Politics so politics doesn't F you. Have a great week.